Hi, everybody. It's been a while, but welcome to the Sam Sports Line Sports Update. For those of you who don't know, I'm Sam Kavaris. I used to anchor the sports and the news and wrote for the paper here for a while in town. And I was around when the Jaguars became the Jaguars. And it seems like a lot of you have had questions for me through a lot of my social media platforms and through the website at samsportsline.com. So rather than constantly, harangue you on social media here. I even made some notes here. I figured I'd just record this. So what's the matter with the Jaguars? That's the first question everybody asks. And I did write this if you want to read it. It is at samsportsline.com. They lack grit. They lack toughness. And that's a hard thing to say, and it's a hard thing to swallow as an athlete. I know when somebody says that to you, and first thing you want to do is get your back up. And you know what? That would be great, because that's the first thing they should do. They have a lot of very talented players, and I think they're coached pretty well. But they lack that grit and that toughness. They could use some guys. I mean, for example, guys like Paul Posluszny or Tom McManus or Lonnie Martz, who had that toughness, certainly very talented guys, but didn't make it just on talent alone. When that hole opened up and that running back started coming through, they looked over there and said, all right, this is going to hurt, but I'm going to try to make it hurt more on you than it does me. And the Jaguars don't have that. And in a lot of their iterations, they haven't had that. Think back, and people say, well, maybe it should be Trevor who kind of instills that. Did the early Jaguars have that? Well, they did, but it wasn't from Mark Brunell. It was from Donnie Baselli. Those of you who have been around long enough remember that Monday night game when Baselli waved Jason Taylor down to the other end when he beat him down so much that Taylor said, I'm surprised it didn't beat me into retirement. They passed on Calais Campbell a couple years ago. Big mistake. And apparently Trent Baalke said to him, why are you here? Well, Campbell's presence in the locker room and on the sidelines and certainly on the field, as you can see now, even last year with the Falcons and this year with the Dolphins, is still part of the equation. The Jaguars don't have anybody like that. They don't have anybody who has that kind of toughness. And when I saw Evan Ingram fumble that ball in the first play of the second half, he went over the sidelines and he sat down and he just sat there and shook his head. That's not the reaction that you want from a leader. You want a leader to come over and throw his helmet and look at everybody and say, listen, that's my mistake, that's on me, but we're not letting this get away from us. We're going to go out there and kick their butts or some such thing. And that would display that kind of toughness. As a guy who I've known for a long time at the stadium said to me last week when I was down there, this team doesn't have any dogs. And boy, that's as good a description as anything. This team needs some dogs, and Baalke and then in turn Peterson, who are in charge of the personnel, have drafted a lot of players. That fourth tight end for the Jaguars is a developmental tight end. For the Bears, it's Mercedes Lewis in his 19th year, showing guys how to act and how to be professionals. I mean, that's the difference, and that's the difference in the Jaguar philosophy. They're still trying to develop talented players. You need some dogs, man, and right now they don't have them. The second question is what's Doug's future? Well, it's hard to say by the end of the year. Shad's not going to fire him while they're in London, but I agree with him when he said beating the Patriots is must win. You can't lose to a rookie quarterback in London in your home stadium at Wembley at London and expect to start 1-6 and to not somebody wonder whether or not you're the answer. This is in his fourth year. The Jaguars have not progressed since they started 8-5 last year, 8-3 actually, and. You can't pin it all in one play, but I mean, if ATN scores instead of fumbles at the goal line against the Dolphins, is this a very different season? Maybe, but as Trevor said, they're fragile. Trevor said that yesterday, and he's 100% right. They're very fragile in terms of how they react to things that happen on the field, and you need that grit and you need that toughness, and right now they don't have any players that kind of bring that to the table. I read an article by my friend and colleague Mike Sando, who also serves on the Pro Football Hall of Fame committee, and he wrote about Trevor and about the Jaguars. And one of the things another GM said about the Jaguars anonymously was, quote, they play like they can't wait for the play to be over. And I was like, wow, what a damning thing to say. But that's sometimes what you look at. These are talented players, but do they really want to get in there and mix it up? Well, when another GM says that the play is like they can't wait for the play to be over, I mean, that's not the attitude that you want. So when Doug talks about a culture shift, that's what he's got to do. And he can't instill it, and the assistant coaches can't. It's got to come from the players. The players have got to be able to control that and in a controlled emotional way get in there and not back off when they're challenged, because now when they're challenged, they fold. So where does that leave Trevor? I mean, he signed a big contract, and that's what everybody talks about. Trevor's still a very, very talented player. And does he need to play better? Absolutely. I mean, that short ball he threw to Brian Thomas Jr. yesterday was like, Trevor, throw that ball to the pylon and let him go get it. And instead it hit the defender right in the back. I mean, and he knew it. I don't know if he short-armed it or what he did, but that's the kind of throw, and we've seen some throws like that in the last 3 weeks that are routine throws for a quarterback who has that kind of confidence. Part of the problem is he's not playing with confidence in the guys in front of him, even though he says it, nor with wide receivers getting open. And even when they get open, they're dropping footballs. I mean, Gabe Davis is paid professional receiver. Are those hard catches? Yes. Are they what you're paid to do? Yes. Same thing with Trevor. That ball in the end zone that he threw that was knocked away by the defender, well, Caleb was able to throw that ball on the back shoulder away from the defender for a touchdown to Kmet. That's where the difference in those two guys are. Is that quarterback coaching? I don't know. Is it offensive coordinator? I'm not sure. But unless they get it figured out, Trevor's going to have different guys talking in his ear coming up at least by next year. So Shad said this is the most talented Jaguar team ever assembled. That's not true, by the way. He should have asked somebody before he said that. That 99 team is one of the most talented teams I've ever seen, regardless of just being on the Jaguars. But this is a very talented team that should be somewhere like 4-2 or 5-1 instead of 1-5 and scraping around looking for a win. A win against the Patriots, I think it'll come this Sunday. What they do when they get back home will determine Doug and everybody else's future as we move on. If you want to see more of this, you can log on to Sam Sportsline on a regular basis. And if you'd like to sponsor this, we'll do it on a regular basis. Contact me through the website, which is samsportsline.com. Hope everybody has a great, dry week here in North Florida.